Hey guys, welcome to a recap of my newest open tournament, Classical Over the Board, here in Almaty, Kazakhstan. Today I played the first round at the tournament. I am seeded number 1 in this tournament, so I'm the rating favorite. And as is customary in first round, the rating favorite plays some significantly lower rated opponents, but my opponent did not decided not to go down without a fight. He played a great game. And you should know that in Asia, especially in Kazakhstan, in India, in China, in some other countries, the ratings are much lower than the true strength of a person. It's not just me who says this, everybody says this, because of rating deflation, because people keep playing the same opponents and don't often go abroad. So in Europe, this guy would be rated at least 200 or 300 rating points higher, I believe. So let's dive into the game. It featured a very fascinating rook endgame, so you will not be disappointed. Very complicated one. The engine cannot decide if it's winning or drawish. So let's see. We had the French defense. I'm playing with the black pieces. I like this opening, and it has brought me good results. Sometimes bad, but I keep playing it nonetheless. So this is a Tarrasch variation, so-called. There are many moves here. The main one is c5, but also d takes, also knight f6. Lots of moves actually here are possible, but I play sometimes bishop e7, the so-called Morozevich variation, named after Alexander Morozevich, one of the strongest ever players to come out of Russia. He goes bishop d3, and I go c5. And here there is some heavy theory. What if white takes? Also e5 is possible, also knight gf3, but my opponent goes c3 and he's out of prep, obviously, because this is not the best move. I didn't even remember the theory after c3 because I didn't remember it to be one of the main moves, and it's true, it's not a good move. It loses all the advantage for white. Now the position is equal, but I didn't remember what exactly I should do here, and I decided, you know what, I'll trade, which is top engine move. And here I entered, I think, and you should know something really funny about this game. When I arrived in the playing hall, I had half the time of my opponent. So the time format for this tournament is 1 hour per game per player, with 30 seconds increment per move after each move. So it's not the standard 1.5 hours per game, because like people here in Kazakhstan don't like playing long games, and I agree, 1 hour is also good enough for a classical game. But I mixed up the tournament venues. I thought the tournament is held in the standard venue, but they opened up a new one, and I arrived in the old venue and they told me, what are you doing here? It's in the different part of town. And I had to run, grab a taxi, and half an hour later, I was at the correct venue. So I had 29 minutes for this game, whereas my opponent had an hour on his clock still left, and he was really angry at me because what the hell this man is. Yes, he is the rating favorite, but why is he disrespecting me so much, coming half an hour late? But it was not disrespect, it was just an honest mistake. And therefore, I had to play fast to not get too low on time. So I decided to make my moves within 2 minutes each. That was my strategy. And until the end of the game, by the way, it worked. At the end, I had more time than my opponent. So check it out. Knight c6 is a logical move, putting pressure on this pawn. He defends it, and now I go queen b6. Of course, I cannot take this pawn, even though it seems to be undefended, but there is a very annoying bishop b5 check, discovers attack on the queen, winning the queen. So this is a very standard trap. I did not fall into this. This is why I don't take. And if I take and he takes and I don't take on d4, then why the hell did I help him develop this bishop? I was relying on the fact that in this position, this knight is very clumsy. It cannot go to f3. It can only go to b3, but this is not the best square for this knight. You should generally try to put your knight on c3 from b1, because on b3, it's not doing much. It can be vulnerable to attacks and so on. And for the time being, white would have preferred this knight to be back on b1, because then the bishop would be free to roam the dark squares. So I was relying on this bad piece and this bad piece and this bad piece, the rook, because it cannot go out, because the bishop cannot go out. So I decided against taking on e4. This was a positional decision. I decided to put more pressure here. Still, I'm not threatening to take, but maybe in future I will. So here he takes, I take back, and he goes queen b3. Wanted to trade the pieces, probably he was a little bit intimidated by our rating difference. And actually taking would be a good move, but I didn't want him to develop his bishop to be able to develop fast enough. I wanted to play against his underdeveloped pieces, which is why I went knight f6 instead of taking on b3. And I said, well, indirectly, telepathically, I said, take my queen. And he took. And of course, he spoiled my pawn structure, but now my rook is very powerful. And I was calculating some variations briefly while he was thinking. I tried to think on his time because of this time difference. And mostly it did me well, because my opponent mostly made the moves that I was expecting to see on the board, so I could anticipate them and could think in advance what I should do, how I should react. So here my idea is knight b4, double attacking the bishop and the a2 pawn. And I wanted to make him go bishop b1 to defend this pawn. And then you will see that his position is very clumsy. So he goes h3, preventing bishop g4, because yes, this is also one of the plans to put more pressure on d4. So h3, normal move, I castle, he castles, and I go knight b4. And the idea is for him to put his bishop here, and then his rook will take a long time to get out of this jail. So that was the idea. He found an interesting idea, rook e1. So I attacked him with my knight, and instead of retreating, he knows that it's not always good to retreat. You can counterattack. And I briefly calculated, what if I take? He takes, but I didn't like the fact that his rook is roaming my 7th rank. The computer actually says that I'm better after this. And if he goes rook c7, I go rook e2. Yeah, black is a little bit better, nothing too crazy, but complicated position. Of course, here I should not take on c1, because even though I can take on a2 next, he can infiltrate like rook c7, maybe not now, but later infiltrate like this, or he can go here, putting more pressure on c8. So yeah, of course, I should not take his bishop. It's still not developed, so my knight is much stronger. Rook e8 would be the correct move. But I briefly considered taking on d3 here. I thought that I shouldn't do it. I should continue playing with many pieces on the board to have some chances, because I need to win. Of course, I need to win all, or at least most of my games to win this tournament, because I'm the rating favorite. And I need to win the games that I'm playing to not lose rating at least. So bishop d6 is what I chose. It's not the best move. It's the second best move according to the engine in this position. Now his bishop is still hanging. He has to drop back. This is what I wanted. I did not go for these complications after knight d3. Instead, I made him paralyze his queen side. And even if he goes a3, this is not a threat to take my knight, because his rook is pinned. So this is the advantage of me doubling my pawns, but activating the rook. And my pieces are very active. This is what I was relying on. Here I went bishop d7. Additionally, I would have loved to put my knight on e4, but currently this square is protected many times, so this knight will remain on f6 for the time being, and I decide to activate my light squared bishop to put it probably on b5, maybe on a4 in some variations, but probably on b5 to put pressure over here, maybe infiltrate like this. So I was optimistic about my position, because my piece play is amazing. My pawn structure is much worse than my opponent's, but my piece play, which is more important, is amazing. You should always consider, whenever you're considering a position and trying to evaluate it, you should first and foremost consider king safety, material, and then piece activity, piece play. And here, of course, material is equal, king safety is equal, no danger to the kings, but piece activity much better for me, because he has 3 pieces that are standing, do nothing. He tries to activate one knight, jumping in to the center. I go bishop b5 as planned. He activates another knight. Finally, he has squares for his bishop, but I'm better. I activate my rook here. Now I anticipated that he goes here, putting pressure on f7, and I wanted to make this classy move bishop e8, which is why it was important to activate the rook first. Now this bishop seems to be passive, but it's doing an important job of protecting this pawn, and later on I can kick him away and then go back if I need. But the bishop is great, and I want to go knight c2. He will have to take, I will infiltrate, and it's going to be a game where I'm pressing and probably can convert this advantage. But instead of knight g5, which I expected and was calculating variations, he went bishop g5. And I suspected that there is something fishy about this move, but I decided to make my moves fast. Again, I don't have much time, I don't want to get too low on time, so I quickly jumped in with my knight to c2, which is a missed opportunity. Actually, I played this game at 93% accuracy according to engine, so I can't be too harsh to myself, but this is the only moment in the game probably where I can be a little bit harsh. Knight e4 was practically winning on the spot. Remember this idea? Now, of course he can take 2 times, but the problem is that his knight and bishop can be forked like this, and I win a piece. And also, once I go knight e4, if he takes but doesn't take the second time, his knight is hanging. If he drops back, I still can go f6. And if he takes, yes, my bishop is hanging, but I can take here and then take here, and I'm still up a piece. So this is what I missed because I didn't calculate too deeply. Maybe if I had more time, probably I would have spotted knight e4. It's not a difficult move to spot here. And again, if he's not taken, if he drops back, for example, bishop h4, then what? Then probably I can go here with same ideas as in the game, but my knight is dominating here and my rook is dominating, and the position is close to losing for white already, according to the engine. Although for me it's not that obvious, but definitely a knight on e4 is very good. If you can put it on e4, you should. But I missed it. Instead, I calculated knight c4, knight c2, sorry, and the following variation. This is a forking both rooks, so he has to exchange. Now this rook is very menacing, but he has some resources of his own. He can take and drop back with his knight. And I calculated the following briefly. Rook takes, check, I drop back, he takes my pawn. Now he's temporarily up a pawn and he wants to grab another one. But I have this nice move, bishop c6, both attacking him and defending the pawn with my rook. And once he drops back, I calculated that if he goes here, I can go here. Actually, the engine finds also rook a3, which is good enough. Bishop b4 is also good. But he went knight e3, which is the best move, actually, according to the engine. And here I thought for some time, what should I do? And I thought, yeah, there is a fork looming here. And also this fork is unpleasant, winning my bishop, which is why I cannot just simply gobble this pawn, because then I lose the bishop. So I decided bishop b4 attacking the rook is a good move, winning a tempo and avoiding the fork. And once he goes here, I just take the pawn. And of course, if he takes here, I'll take here with check. And if he takes here, I'll take here with check. So it's a good position. I thought that I'm pressing. I have the 2 bishops advantage. I'm no longer down a pawn. I won it back. And yes, my pawns are doubled, but they are passed pawns. Outside passed pawns, and 2 bishops are generally better than 2 knights, and my rooks are powerful on the second rank. So I felt that, practically speaking, I'm, of course, maybe not winning, but playing for a win. And also I'm high rated, and also by this time I've practically equalized on time. My opponent already had like 20 minutes, and I also had like 20 minutes. So he spent 40 minutes, I spent just 10 minutes making those moves. Well, a little bit more because there was also increment. So here he goes knight c4, attacking the rook and the pawn. I trade. He cannot take here because his king would be hanging, which is illegal. So he has to take here. And now I was deciding between rook c2 and rook b3, and I decided that rook b3 is better, and the computer agrees. This is the best move. So what I'm threatening is I'm threatening to simply take here and win a pawn if I want to. I actually did not want to take this pawn. I wanted to go here and win that pawn. And I was fine giving up the b6 pawn as long as my b7 pawn survives and in future marches to queen in square. And if I trade this bishop for this knight and we get an endgame of a rook a bishop against a rook and a knight with this passed pawn, it should be winning, I thought. And this pawn, the d pawn, I should be able to win it. So I will have the b pawn that is passed, and the bishop is stronger than the knight when we are playing on two sides of the board, which we are, and he will also have a destroyed pawn structure, and his king is too far to join the action. So yeah, this is what I briefly considered, and I went rook b3, which is a good move. And if he takes here, of course, it's not good because I have bishop c3, I taking the rook and I taking the knight at the same time. And if he takes here, I can, at the very least, go here, and he loses because he cannot defend the knight, and I'll take the knight next. So yeah, bishop c3 would be fatal. This is why he cannot take this pawn. I calculated some moves that he has. I calculated that if he goes here, I go bishop t3. Sorry about my arrows, and I thought I'm much better. I calculated that if he goes here attacking me, I go bishop d5. Yeah, the computer agrees actually. Bishop e4 is also good enough to preserve the advantage. But he went for a different idea. So after rook b3, again putting pressure on f3, he tried to intercept my rook and went knight e3 to intercept it. And here I thought that maybe I should prevent, like his idea is to go d5 and counterattack and create some counterplay and kill my bishop. So I thought maybe I should go bishop e4, and the computer says, yeah, this is the best move. But then I decided, you know what, knights are tricky, we both have like 15 minutes left, maybe I missed some fork, and I thought that this endgame, takes, should be better for me, much better for me. The computer, of course, laughs at me and says that with best play, white will make a draw here. But practically speaking, I'm not sure. I would not want to be on the receiving end of this endgame, on white's end. I would not take white here, never. I would take black all the time. And I think against an equal opponent, this is a two-result game. You may win it, you may draw it. But against a weaker opponent, it's 9 out of 10 times a win for the black side. So this is what I thought. I went bishop a5 because his move next move would be the infiltration of the rook. I don't want to allow it. I intercept him. He goes here. I go rook d3. I want to take this pawn. He goes rook b1. He says, okay, take this pawn because he doesn't really have a good way to defend it. If he goes rook a4, for example, I can go bishop d2, put more pressure there, or I can walk with my king, for example, like this, and yeah. It's going to be a long game, but I guess it's much better for white. So he decided to give up this pawn. And also I cannot take it immediately because it would be a fatal blunder, fork, and black can resign. So of course I cannot take immediately. I went king f8 to sidestep. I wanted to go king f6, but then I didn't like knight d5, forking me and taking this pawn, and I thought it should be a draw, which is why I went here. I thought that knight f5 still is the best move for him, restricting my king, and I wanted to go king here, and if here, then here, and he can take, of course, but I don't think that it's good for him. Yeah, the engine agrees that this is a very unpleasant endgame for him to defend. So this is what I briefly calculated, but he did not go knight f5. Instead, he went knight c4 with a similar idea. He wants to take on b6, which is exactly what happened. Or rather, yeah, the most precise way to try to make a draw is this. Because if he takes on b6, I'm not obliged to take back. I can go rook b4, and this is a winning endgame. So yeah, he was precise. He took here and then took here. And this is the rook endgame that you might want to study, to analyze for half an hour. Because the computer, the engine, says it's equal. But once I let it run for like 10-15 minutes, it finds wins in practically all the lines. There is a very extremely narrow path to a draw for white. Over the board, I thought it should be close to winning. Maybe I thought again that maybe an engine would draw this, but my opponent is not an engine. And usually rook endgames are notoriously drawish, especially when the rook is behind the passed pawn. But for me, the good thing is that my rook is also very active. Had my rook been here, it would have been a dead draw. But here, it's a different story, because my rook cuts off the king if the king wants to go here. I also advance my h-pawn, and it controls some squares here. I restrict him. I always have ideas of marching with my king. I always have ideas of going rook f4, and the rook will defend all 3 of my pawns at the same time, and my king will be free to roam the board. And practically speaking, I think that it's close to impossible to defend this. So he goes here, preventing me from going to the 7th rank, but I go via a different route. He goes here, preventing me from going to the 6th rank, but I just block. Check, he waits, preventing me from going here to f5, and then to help my pawn queen. And here I thought that probably I'll go f5 at some point, then I'll go here and here, but we are both like with 5 minutes on the clock at this point of time. And I thought I'll win some time by shuffling the pieces, and I go rook b4. Actually, according to the engine, f5 is already winning if you let it run long enough. This is the line that it shows. So if check, then I will run this way. So it's not good. So king f1 is the best move. And then king g5, king e2, king here, rook c4. The idea is to check him and to take this pawn. Rook a5, rook b4. Very subtle. I don't really understand why. Here, and now I check. Well, engines are interesting creatures. And if he goes here, now I take. And previously, I did not want to give up this pawn because I thought that the f and h rook endgame should be a draw. So even if he loses both pawns, the f pawn and the h pawn, f and h pawns usually are a draw if white's king is somewhere here. If white's king is here, this is a draw. But white's king is cut off, and in this one, it is winning. So this is what I should have done. And if he doesn't run to e2, if the king stays for white, if the king stays on g2 and does nothing, then I just march my king. And if he does nothing, I just march my king. And next I'll march my king and win the game. So f5 turns out to be the winning move here, f5. Instead, I went rook b4. I thought I'll go f5 next because I'll have to go king g5, king f4. But in this variation, this is a draw according to the engine. Well, it seems like it's a draw. Let's show the variation. f5, king e2. I go here. This is the difference. He prevents me from going to f4 with the king, and I can check him. He can drop back. I can go a3, but this is still a draw according to the engine because rook a4. Now he's restricting me again. And I can even go here and go a2, but this doesn't help. He just waits, and my king has no infiltration squares. Wow. Of course, neither of us could see as deep as the engine. So turns out king f1 here is drawing. Wow. Instead, he went rook a6, allowing me to run with my king. He probably decided that he'll run with his king as well, which he did. But the problem here is that I'm ready to sacrifice the f6 pawn. I calculated this with 3 minutes left on the clock. I calculated this. I calculated the variation that happened next. So he went king d1. I calculated rook f5, and I thought that I'll go a3 and win the game, which is true. But he went king d1. King d1. Similar idea, but he wants to run the king, so I stop it with rook c4, cutting him. And now I want to go here, and I want to queen my pawn next. So he goes rook f5 to initiate at least some counterplay. I go a3, this is all I calculated. Check, king b5. And the problem is that I escape the checks. For example, if he checks me here, I just go up, and there are no checks left. So instead, he goes down to check me from there, but I still go a2. Because if he goes rook a8, rook a4 is a standard practice of intercepting, building a breach, as they call it. And his king is 1 square too short of stopping my pawn. So rook a8, of course, doesn't work. Instead, he checks me from b8. But I just go king a4, and my idea is similar, to build a bridge like this. And I also want to queen. And he cannot stop it. If he goes here, I go here. And again, the threat is rook a4. He will have to give up the rook. If he checks me, I block. And if he goes here, well, I can go rook a4 again, and then I'll queen. So, yeah, very unpleasant for him to realize here that he is lost. And here, with seconds on the clock, he finds the move king d2, a clever trap. Because if I queen here, I actually don't win. I even lose the game because he checks me. Winning this queen. And this endgame is winning for white because black's king is too far from the action, from the pawns. So winning for white. From losing to winning in one move. If I queen. But of course I see it. I just go rook c5 to build a bridge. And he resigns because he can do nothing. Next move I'll go rook a5 or a queen and then block. So I win this game, the first round. Of course my opponent was much lower rated, but still it was a challenge. I wonder how difficult it will be to play against opponents closer to my rating. We will see. But I still am optimistic and I will try to win this tournament. If you believe in me, write a comment. If you don't, do also write a comment to stimulate me, inspire me to do it. See you in the next one. Bye bye.